Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Fishing with Rod. It is Fraser River pink salmon season. This fishery opened last week and today is, I believe it's August 26th. It's a little bit on the early side, but there should be some fish around. Typically this fishery peaks around the first 2 weeks of September, but before that you can start seeing fish coming in, and I did actually see a few risers out there. This is one of my favorite salmon fisheries. When I first moved to Canada back in the mid-90s, the pink salmon fishery in the Fraser River was the first fishery that I experienced, and it was just a lot of fun. Even to this day, 30 years later, I still get excited once every 2 years when I come out and fish for them. I always talk about this is a very family-friendly, kid-friendly, beginner-friendly fishery, because the fish are very abundant. The estimated return this year was 27 million fish, which is a lot of fish. Not only that, but these fish are also very aggressive. They will chase down lures readily, and so they're fairly easy to catch on light tackle. Very, very fun, and it's very rewarding when you can come out and put in the effort and getting some fish. So it's pretty early, like I say. I don't know whether we're actually going to get any fish. This video is more of a conversation about how to get you into pink salmon fishing, how you can catch more fish. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later on as I do some casts and see what happens. Okay, let's talk about fishing gear for Fraser River pink salmon. The most common way of catching these fish is by casting and retrieving a lure with a spinning outfit. You can use pretty much any kinds of spinning rods for them. I've seen guys using a spinning rod that's used for rockfish jigging and still catch them. But there are definitely some that are more enjoyable to use than others. And you don't need a really expensive rod to use as well. This particular rod right here is a G-Loomis GCX model. It retails $500. It's an overkill. You don't need one that expensive. You can use a spinning rod that costs $50 or less and catch just as many pink salmon. What's more important to pay attention to is the length of the rod and the rating of the rod. This rod right here is 9 feet long, so anywhere from 6 to 9 feet is what you should be using. A rod that's too long, over 10 feet, is too tiring to cast repeatedly. A rod too short, it's really hard to manage when you're fishing along a steep, rocky shoreline like this. With a 9 feet long rod, I can stand all the way back here and still reach the water. So that's kind of why I went with that length. The rating of the rod should be at least 4 to 8 pound test. This one right here is 6 to 12 pound test. A little bit heavier for pink salmon, but this rod would be perfect for cold salmon. So if you're looking for one particular fishing outfit for both species, go with a slightly heavier rating. Don't go too light low. I used to fish for pink salmon with a 2 to 6 pound test light trout spinning rod, and even though it was really, really fun, it's really hard on the fish because you got to fight them a lot longer, and it's hard on your fishing gear as well. The Fraser River being so silty, a lot of silt gets collected on the line, and when there's that much play on the fish, pulling the line out, retrieving the line with a thin line, I find that the line gets frayed pretty easily. So definitely upsize your gear a little bit. This particular reel right here, Shimano Stratic 2500, is spooled with 15 pound test powerful braided line. I love braided line because there's no stretch and you can definitely feel a lot more bites than just typical monofilament line. The water being so colored here in the Fraser River, visibility down to maybe a foot, you can pretty much tie your lure directly to the braided line and still catch fish. I personally like to tie a section of fluorocarbon to the end of my braided line, but that's just my preference. And that's more for clear water conditions so the fish wouldn't see your braided line. But like I say, in much colored water conditions, tying your lure directly to the braided line shouldn't matter as much. When you're casting and retrieving, You don't necessarily have to cast as fast as you can. I do right here just because it's fairly shallow right in front of me. But pink salmon tend to travel pretty close to shore, so you'll be surprised how close you can get those fish. So cast your lure out, let it sink for a few seconds. How long you let it sink depends on the current, depends on how deep it is. The deeper it is, the longer you let it sink. The more current there is, the longer you let it sink, because the current's gonna prevent the lure from sinking down. The idea is to keep your lure close to the bottom, and that's where the fish are. So when you're retrieving, you shouldn't retrieve your lure like this, have your rod pointing up like that. What's gonna happen is your lure is gonna come close to the surface and away from the fish. What you wanna do, cast out, you let it sink for a few seconds, let it sink, and then you wanna drop your rod tip down toward the water and retrieve like that. By doing so, you're keeping the lure swing pretty parallel to the river bottom and keeping the lure in the strike zone. Your retrieve speed shouldn't be too fast like that, because that's hard for the fish to chase down the lure. And it's also, you bring the lure away from the strike zone. So slow retrieve speed is best, but there isn't just one single best retrieve speed as well. You definitely want to adjust that retrieve speed. When you see a lot of fish jumping around, if you're not getting fish, adjust your retrieve speed. So a lot of times, pink salmon love to follow behind your lure, but they wouldn't commit fully. And quite often you'll feel little taps behind on your rod tip, and that's not necessarily the bottom, you're dragging bottom, but it's actually a pink salmon following behind it and nibbling on your hook. When that happens, you want to slow down your retrieve just a little bit more. By doing so, it takes these fish by surprise, because that's really putting that lure in front of the face. And quite often I find that the fish will commit to that bite pretty fast if you slow down that retrieve. Sometimes increase your retrieve a little bit as well will trigger more aggressive fish to bite as well. So, but yeah, retrieve speed definitely adjusted. The size of the lure should be somewhere around 1/4 ounce. And if you're fishing in faster current, tidal current, you want to go a little heavier, 3/8 ounce maybe. 1/2 ounce would be too heavy. 1/8 ounce works, but not as good as 1/4 ounce I find, because 1/8 ounce, first of all, the lure is quite small, so the fish might have a hard time finding in the water, and also just might not get down to the bottom where you want the lure to be. So let's talk about timing and location, which are two really important factors when it comes to any kinds of fishing, actually, not just pink salmon fishing. Every year I get asked, where is the best fishing spot along the Fraser River for pink salmon? Well, there isn't one or several particular best fishing spots along the river. You can pretty much catch pink salmon anywhere along the Fraser River where it's open. Right now it's open from Steveston all the way to Hope and beyond. And all these fish, 27 million fish, are going to be traveling anywhere along the river. So at any given time, at a place, you could be into pink salmon. What's more important is timing. If you're fishing along the Tidal Fraser River below Mission, this fishery is very tide dependent. So the best time is somewhere between 3 hours before the tide peaks to 1 or 2 hours after the tide has peaked. Today, we have a high tide around mid-morning, around 10 o'clock. So theoretically, they should have been biting somewhere between 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, until 11 o'clock, which is right now. But it doesn't always work. Today, there are no fish going by. Whereas yesterday, we have friends fishing over here, and they definitely got into some fish. So every day is a little different. You can maximize your chances by narrowing down when you fish, by coincide your fishing time with the tide. And the tide is not always the same though. So if you look at the tide today, we have a mid-morning high tide and a evening around 8 or 9 o'clock high tide again. But they're pretty small high tide. And the low tide earlier, it's quite high as well. So the tidal difference between the low tide and high tide is quite small. Whereas in a week from now, I'm thinking September 5th, September 6th. If you look at the tide table during those days, we got some massive flood tide coming up. And the lows are really big as well. I think the difference is somewhere around 10 feet. When you get a big tidal difference like that, the current is a lot stronger because it's the same amount of time for more water to come into gushing, and that's going to push in a lot more fish. Historically, when I've been fishing these runs for the last 30 years, the first week of September, when we get that big morning and evening tides, is when we're going to see a huge rush of fish coming in, and that's when the fishing is going to be really good. So even though I didn't catch anything today, we saw the odd risers and stuff. I wasn't too disappointed. I was kind of not surprised. You know, when you come this early, August 25th, 26th, it's a bit of a hit and miss. I know it can be good at times if you bump into fish, but the fishing in the first 2 weeks of September is when it's going to be really good, and that's when you should be down here for pink salmon. So pay attention to timing, not so much to location. Location is important, but not as important as timing. You can come to a spot, a really good fishing spot, when the tide is wrong and catch nothing, where 6 hours later the fishing can be really good. So definitely pay attention to that. This is the north arm of the Fraser River down in Richmond. It's one of my favorite places to fish in the last 30 years. You hear the airplanes going by on the top. It is not the best fishing spot. As you can see, there were no fish today. I bet you down the south arm today, there were probably a lot more fish going by. And the other thing is, why did I drive all the way from Chilliwack down to Richmond to fish for these fish? Well, for one, I used to live down this way, so I really enjoy fishing at some of the places where I used to fish. But secondly, more importantly, is that as these fish go up the river, the freshest fish are going to be found down near the Fraser River mouth. So as they come in, these will be the freshest pink salmon you will get along the entire Fraser River. So that's why I want to be fishing down here. Nothing wrong with catching pink salmon towards Chilliwack, though. I mean, it takes a day or so for them to travel from down here all the way up. But there's definitely a slight difference when it comes to the fish quality. So a little picky, so that's why I like to drive down here and fish for them. The fresher fish, stronger fish as well. And the other thing is, water clarity is different between Chilliwack and here as well. Up towards above Mission, water is definitely saltier, whereas down here, because there's a lot more saltwater influence down this way, water tend to be a lot clearer than up there. So, yeah. But again, nothing. It's 11 o'clock, the tide's going out now. It's a little hot, I'm a little overdressed. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna head into town, have some really good Chinese food, and we're gonna try again this afternoon for the evening tide and see how that goes. Okay, I've already have my bubble tea and noodle soup, because that's what you do when you come to Richmond. And it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Low tide was around 3 o'clock, so the tide has already turned. Water started coming. I'm now at the south on the Fraser River, the south of Richmond. Already seeing some pink salmon surfacing, which is great signs for this early. There's one right there. And I think the tide peaks around 9. So I think we're gonna be in for a good session here. So let's go down there, make some casts. I'm excited. Definitely some sockeye jumping out there. You can see them leaping out, but every now and then you see the odd humps coming up. Pink salmon don't typically jump. They tend to just surface and showing their back. So that's what you're looking for. It's very, not very obvious. You kind of have to really look. There's one right there. I'm excited. Even if you see them, sometimes the tide is just kind of wrong, but all of a sudden they would just turn on. Water clarity is not ideal. It's still fairly murky, but let's see what happens. This incoming tide current is a little stronger than what we had this morning. Southbound, but typically the current is quite a bit stronger. So you gotta let it sink a little bit, possibly using slightly heavier lure as well. So because of this incoming tide current, the current is going upstream. I want to cast downstream a little bit and let the current bring my lure to in front of me. So I'm going about between 1 and 2 o'clock down, and by the time I start retrieving, the lure should be right in front of me. And slowly retrieve down if you don't play around with the retrieve speed. And that's where the smooth reel comes in, like a good reel, like a Stratic 2500. You can really slow it down without feeling any resistance. And the beauty about fishing in late August, September for pink salmon is the weather is beautiful. I mean, shorts, there's no rain, just dry, and well, the tide is still kind of low, still coming in. These fish are surfacing a little further out, so you definitely have to cast a bit further. But as the tide gets higher, I'm pretty sure we're gonna start seeing fish traveling closer to shore. They tend to stay away from the current, so the closer they can get, the better. One just rolls right beside my lure. Let's see if he'll bite. Oh, there's one. There's the pink salmon. Look at that. First fish of the season. I'm just as excited as 30 years ago when I caught them in 1995. There you go. There you go. All right, first fish in the net. And I think we'll get it home. That's what we'll do. You know what I forgot? I forgot a knife today. So I'm gonna have to rip the gills with my fingers like a barbarian. But first I want to bunk it. You want to dispatch these fish as quickly as possible. And that is how you do it. Fraser River pink salmon. Roughly around 3 to 4 pounds, not very big. Gonna put that in the cooler and come back in another one. So I actually hooked that fish pretty close to shore. But I don't think it was swimming that close. But that fish probably followed the lure in before he actually committed to the bite, which is pretty often they would do that. It was a little fun. They don't fight as hard as coho salmon, they don't run like coho salmon, not as strong as a big Chinook salmon, but on light tackle, can't complain. Especially if you never caught salmon before, this is such a great fishery. There's just so many fish, and they're pretty easy to entice and pretty exciting on light tackle. Bite, tap, tap. Since I missed that, I'm gonna slow down the retrieve a little bit. maybe you'll chase it. They will come back again and again, sometimes. Not always, sometimes. The trick is definitely putting that lure in front of their face. So by slowing this retrieve down into this murky water, you're giving them a bit more time to see that lure. Oh, got a tap. Oh, now tap. There's one. See, 2 taps and fish on. If you miss it, keep reeling and you get it. I think it's a male. You know, it's got that hump. So, oh, lost it. All right. Oh well, there'll be more. So males got that hump. They tend to have a thicker body, so they can use that as an advantage to. Oh, there's another one. Don't fish on. Fish are coming in now. Another one. Hey, look at that. 2 in a row. Ah, there goes a nice run. Scrappy, eh? Look how it's not even that big. It's like, again, 3 pounds. That's a male. Yeah, it's got a dinner plate going on there, bit of a hump. Still pretty silver because it's close to the river mouth. We'll let this one go, I think. There he goes. Scrappy release. 2 fish in a row. That was pretty good. That's 2 for 3. Not bad for, what, less than an hour of fishing so far. Oh, bite. Tap, tap. All right, back again, tap again. Come on, committed to it. 3 taps. So is it gonna go for the 3rd one? Usually 3rd one's the charm. No? Oh, another tap. This is where the, a more expensive rod with a sensitive tip comes in, and you can feel every single tap on the rod. Whereas if you're using a thicker rod, a rod that's not as sensitive, you're gonna miss quite a few bites actually. It's really important to get that lure sink down after it reaches the water for a few seconds. I'll give it maybe 5 seconds and then just reel. It's not necessarily right on the bottom because you don't want to get snags. The Fraser bottom itself is not snaggy right here. It's mud, but as you get closer to the shore, there are lots of rocks, so you could get snags. You could snag up. So you want to be close to the bottom, but not on the bottom. Lots of fish jumping out there, as you can see. So the juvenile salmon out migrating and now swimming downstream to the ocean. It's such an important ecosystem. Not a whole lot of other fish live in this area, but it's an important habitat for especially for juvenile salmon. As they come down, they spend a lot of time down this way, feed, and take shelter before they head out into the ocean. Waves coming through. Lots of cargo ships going by and stuff, so gotta watch out every now and then. Don't just focus on the fishing. So far so good though. It's definitely not a constant stream of fish going through, but more like a several smaller schools of fish going by, and every time that when there's a school going by, you have a chance of getting a bite or two, just like what you've seen before. And it's only, so what time is it? Oh, it's only 5 o'clock, so 3 more hours of fun if I want to fish for that long, all the way until, I mean, like I said, flood tide is around 9 o'clock, so we're gonna see more fish coming through for sure. Oh, bite. This was one. One tap, and then it came back again. There you go. That was fun. There you go. Net is really handy when you're landing a fish, especially in a rocky shoreline like this. Nice looking male. Well, this one goes well. There you go. Beauty. Well, it looks like someone turned off the tap right after I caught that last fish. All of a sudden, they just stopped coming. It's only 6 o'clock in evening time right now. We still got 3 hours until flood tide. So this could be it for the evening, or there could be more fish coming through. You just never know. And that's the beauty of fishing, right? It's unpredictable. You have to put in the time. You never know what's going to happen. Some days are going to be good. Some days are going to be bad. And but yeah, the more time you put in, the more you'll learn about these fisheries. But I think we're gonna wrap up this episode right here. I hope you enjoyed it. And I know some of you are gonna say, well, pink salmon are so easy to catch, why are you fishing for them? You know, what are you trying to prove? I can catch just as many. But this isn't about you. This video is about showing anyone who's new to salmon fishing so they can get inspired, motivated, and get out, have some confidence, and enjoy the same thing as well. Like I said, there are 27 million pink salmon coming back to the Fraser River this year. In the next 3 weeks, it should be a lot of fun. Make sure you follow the fishing regulations. Make sure you have the right valid fishing license. If you're fishing in the tidal portion of the Fraser River, make sure you have a saltwater fishing license. If you're fishing the non-tidal portion above the CPR bridge in Mission, you need to have a freshwater fishing license. Make sure you buy a salmon stamp as well if you want to keep any pink salmon. All of the revenues go back into our fisheries, so it's well worth it. It's a good investment. Plus, you don't want to get fined if you get checked. The day limit of pink salmon is 4 a day here in the Tidal Fraser, and you have to release all the other salmon species. Sockeye salmon is open right now, but it's closing soon. So make sure you identify the species in the water while it's in the net. Handle every fish with care, and please respect every single fish. I know there are a lot of fish coming back, and every single fish matters, and that's pretty much what I asked for. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you have any other questions, make sure you leave a comment on the bottom. I will take the time to answer your question, and until next time, be safe and good luck fishing.